pass the time. Can we just give him the purpose and goals? And we just write the role of the chairman of the committee. Okay. And do the agenda. Yeah, can we just type up the purpose and goals and get it to the program? Okay. Okay. Read them up. And then let's go to the agenda. Let's do the agenda up there. Okay, y'all, come on. Wait, fire up. Say it. I'm fired up. I'm fired up. I'm fired up. I'm fired up. We're tired of it. We ain't taking it anymore. We're tired of it. We ain't taking it anymore. We're tired of it. We ain't taking it anymore. As long as we keep God with us for this year, this program will be successful. Because the fact that you're here today, when people say to you that you don't care, people in public housing no longer care. They no longer have hope. They no longer dream, have aspirations or goals. The fact that you are standing here this morning in the cold weather and stand on the bus line truly says that you never gave up. You never gave up the fight, and you were determined to change your destiny and change your quality of life. And you are developing as leaders. That's what this whole training is about, to develop you as leaders to take control of your own destiny and take control of your own lives. And as leaders, we must begin to appreciate each other and appreciate the people who are responsible for giving you the freedom that you're going to get. Because part of this training that I'm going to give you in this year will be freedom. Freedom simply means the ability to control one's destiny. I will give you the skills to do that. You have to bring with it the goals, the work, because freedom doesn't come easy. Freedom does not come free. One has to work to be free. The system in Chicago has dropped in the heads of people that public housing in Chicago is so bad, it's beyond saving. Nobody can turn it around. And I want you to understand why. Because there's big money in po-pos. Don't nobody take care of us because they're good old boys. They do things for us because they make money. As long as we're poor, we create jobs for other people. Because that gives them something to do. The moment we began to take care of ourselves, we put a lot of people out of work. My eyes have seen the glory beyond the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes and lands are stored. He has loosed his faithful light, did win his terrible with sword. His truth is marching on.
I think what we're trying to do is involve residents in a participatory planning effort to improve their quality of life. We want to test out ways that will improve their life styles by providing them with enough information so that they can determine how best to manage the sites, improve the sites where they live, including both some management emphasis as well as their involvement in taking a vested interest in their community.
The Metropolitan Planning Council helped set up the Chicago Housing Authority in 1937. And in fact, the council sent their first executive director over to the CHA, and that person became the CHA's first director, Elizabeth Wood, and helped set up the policies and the procedures and all the things that went into creating, at that time, one of the most progressive and most exciting of housing authorities in the country, in one of the country's biggest cities. And for a good nearly 20 years, it operated as an exemplary authority. People were coming from all over the world to see how low-income people were housed in Chicago, because it was done with great sensitivity, good design, with a real understanding of the needs of the people occupying the housing, and a real sense of the needs of the community too. These were developments at that time that integrated well with the community and were essentially good examples of what government can do. Elizabeth Wood left in 1954 under duress, and there were a lot of things going on at that time. I think the two things that were most important were that she no longer had the support of the mayor of Chicago. For those early years, the mayor was extremely supportive and interesting, that supportive in a way that was kind of hands-off. The Housing Authority had a job to do, and Mayor Kelly at that time essentially let the authority do its job. Following mayor, Mayor Kennelly, was not so supportive and essentially wanted to be involved politically in the distribution of housing in the city, and essentially didn't want housing that would house minorities built in white neighborhoods. And the City Council of Chicago got legislation passed at the state level that would make it impossible to locate housing in the city without the permission of the City Council, which means without the permission of the alderman, which means that aldermen in white wards were fighting at that time. And so after that, after about about 54 was when Wood left, she was fighting for racially integrated housing, and it wasn't a popular thing to fight for in those days, and she was fighting for dispersed housing, and that was becoming more and more impossible. So what we have then, and you can see the real change of what was built prior to that date and after that date, is that housing became more and more confined, more and more isolated, located in one neighborhood, and then it would just expand. And because of the limited availability of acceptable land, high-rises got built instead of low-rises. It was also the architectural theme of the time, this idea of great high-rises in park settings. What we got from that point on is much denser housing in higher-rise buildings, more and more large units so that the ratio of kids to adults becomes real problematic, and more economic and social and racial isolation. So we've wound up in Chicago with one of the most economically and racially segregated public housing authorities in the country.
My name is Cochran Moore. I'm a resident in 1230 Berlin for the past 30 years. I'm the mother of 6 kids. Now have 2 still at home.
My name is Dolores Wilson. I'm a resident of 1230 North Burling. And I am the mother of 5 children, and I have 1 at home.
My name is Dorian Scott. I'm a resident of 1230 North Burling. I've been here 29 years. I'm a mother of 3.
Most of my kids is grown. My oldest son was just 30 when I moved in here. He was 7 months old. He's a graduate student from Eastern University.
When I was growing up here, we had a lot of activities. We had a nice playground. It was beautiful. It was integrated. And they was very strict, okay? And it was mostly a 2-parent families that was here. Most neighbors looked out for each other. They took care of each other's children as I was growing up. We always had something to do, like every Friday and Saturday night we'll have a skating party, or we'll go to into another building to have dances. The schools was much better then, okay? They was very good with discipline, sponsoring different things for kids to do. They also talked with the children and helped them to decide what they wanted to be when they grow up. Also, the parents was here to do the same thing, to talk with the children, to take interest in us, because I was a child growing up here.
Like Dorian said, we had the playground, they had the Lower North Center. They utilized the Lower North Center quite a bit when they were about 10, 12, 15 years old now.
Things changed when the 2 cops got killed. Back in the 60s, 68, 67, no, 68, 69, when the 2 policemen got killed. That's when Cabrini became a household name. Okay. But still, even in all, when the 2 policemen did get killed, we still had things to do. We had places to go, things to see.
Clearly, residents of public housing are the victim of the crime that's perpetuated in public housing. There's no question about that. And the overwhelming majority of people are good citizens and law-abiding. There remain within the public housing 5 to 10% of a population, which terrorizes, I think, many of the other residents and give the reputation to the entire population of that community a bad reputation. What brings us to this problem is that the CHA has failed in its landlord responsibilities, if you will, and that what is required is some new force that can only, I think, come from the tenants that require them to meet their obligations. What we are supporting and what they are seeking is increased empowerment to have some say in the quality of living in their community.
TMC, as we call it. It's tenants managing their public housing developments or buildings with a management contract from the PHAs, which is the public housing authorities. That's what tenant management is. My name is Bertha Gilkey. I'm the president of Cochran Tenant Management Corporation in the city of St. Louis. I'm also the president of the citywide Tenant Affairs Board. I'm a trainer. I train groups all over the country. I'm a mother to first. I represent almost 16,000 tenants in public housing in St. Louis, Missouri. People in public housing are very articulate. People in public housing are very skilled. They know what they want. Just because you are poor, you don't stop dreaming. The problem is that source has never been tapped. That people assume all they can ever be are junkies, dope pushers, pimps, or whatever. That is not true.
My name is Mary Cotton. I'm the floor captain of the 13th floor. I've been here 20 years. I have 9 kids. I raised 6 here. And when I moved in 1966, it was a beautiful place. We had grass, flowers, security. Everybody worked together. It was nice and clean and comfortable. And now it has gotten worse. And I hope and pray to live and see and make it a better place in which to live.
I guess what I've witnessed this week was something that I felt was there for the last year, and that was that residents have, like people who live anywhere else, want an opportunity to live in decent and safe and sanitary housing. And unlike the general population, they're willing, because their environments have become so bad, to participate in any process that would make it better. They're hungry for it. And you can see not only the desire, intense desire, but the sort of hope and aspirations and desperateness that larger population never has to exist.
My name is Ann Strong. I'm president of this building, secretary of the LEC, and I've got 7 children. I had 8. One killed himself from this building. My purpose for this training, and hope I can be able to continue it, is to learn how to organize our people and how to bring unity with our people so that we may all work together in order to make some of these changes that we need here in our building.
If you look at the debate over welfare, it's easier to see how the society shifts back and forth on an issue that deals with disadvantaged people. We reflect that too. The debate about public housing is not quite so clear. You have to get into very esoteric congressional debates about the funding of very esoteric housing programs.
Most housing authorities, when you go into their offices, they have lavish furniture. That's bought out of the subsidies and rents of public housing tenants. In St. Louis, we had an executive director that spent $15,000 on a credenza, $8,000 on one chair. So I swear to God, he had 8 chairs, and you know how much money he spent. His desk cost $50,000. He bought him not a Ford, like a little Ford. He bought him one of these long cars, almost a Cadillac, out of public housing dollars. And here we had public housing developments that didn't even have screens in the windows. Babies were falling out the windows, dying, because there was no screens in the windows. And he was spending $50,000 for a desk.
This is their home. And what we see here today is the second generation of some residents, some of the resident families. They grew up, their mothers raised them here, they're now raising their own families here. And they plan to stay here. And they want it better. They remember when it was a good place to live, and they want it back.
Now you're suggesting that through tenant management, people become enfranchised, become empowered, become competent in the society, and have a desire to stay there because they themselves have may even have an economic investment in being there. This is no longer temporary housing. And their income and their enfranchisement is such that they could live in another kind of housing. Should they deny that housing unit that they're living in to some disenfranchised family?
The other reason to me that public housing has failed is because the housing authorities are paid for vacant units. I am absolutely positively against that. I think that there is no incentive from the housing authority if they're going to be paid for vacant units. There's no incentive for them to get the units rented if the federal government's going to pay for a vacant unit. That's why there's so many vacant units in Chicago public housing, because the federal government since 1974 has paid the housing authority for vacant units.
One of the problems I've had ever since I've been on the board is how one can be just a policy-making body and yet be responsible for everything that goes on. And to me, the most important thing then is that you have a director that you really trust. That's the only way I can see that it can work.
The one function that is ongoing at all times is the fact that it's a landlord. And there's two problems with that. Number one, there is no clear concept of management.
If you look at the public housing budgets, they have deputy and deputy and deputy, an executive secretary, and an executive assistant secretary, an assistant to the executive secretary. That's where the money goes. And then finally somebody says, oh, we got to do something for the tenants. Because after all, this money is for public housing. And then maybe 10% of the budget is used to buy some windows, some doors, some paint, no stoves, no refrigerators, very few maintenance workers, no security. You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing left to operate the development off of, because all the money is going towards the administration. And that is a fact. And I challenge any housing authority that's hearing me talking, I challenge them to say that I'm not telling the truth. Go through their budgets and let them explain their budgets to you, and you will find that 85 to 90% of their budgets is fact.
In St. Louis, you have a woman who is very good at publicizing herself and publicizing what she's done there, and the project that she has managed and worked with and trained people for obviously is much better than it was before. But the problem, what we need is more studies.
I suppose the hope and the dream would be that there would be tenant management in as many buildings as possible. I think until the people in the housing developments become concerned with their own welfare, and that certainly is important, and I think we should all work towards that, and starting a little bit in Chicago. I think it's too slow, but I think it's the only hope.
Well, I want to argue. The fact of the matter is that tenant management is a social activity.
We're tired of it. We're tired of it. We ain't taking it anymore. We ain't taking it anymore. We're tired of it. We're tired of it. We ain't taking it anymore. First of all, what I'm doing here in Chicago is to train tenants in leadership development. The skills have to be taught to the people. The people have to be taught how to take care of themselves. Also, my role is to motivate the tenants and get them to organize floor captains, a structure in the building, to get floor captains and building captains and councils set up in the buildings so that there is an organization to begin to get tenants to buy in to the concept and make tenants responsible, to get tenants to sweep and mop their own floors, to get tenants to establish their own rules and their own regulations. Everybody else stand in the hallways, y'all don't say nothing.
Yes, ma'am, we're dealing with you and others too. And you will have your chance to talk. Just hold on. So this is your, thank you, Mr. Jones. This is the reason we have you down here. We have,
I'm getting you when you get on, girl.
Now, as you have said,
I'm getting you previously. I told you to stay away from them boys. They ain't no good, none of them.
we are not going to have that. Now, what's going to happen if you continue to do this? You know what's going to happen? Your mother's not going to have any place to live.
Girl, you know you ain't getting me put out. Now, I got 6 more kids. You know you gonna go live with your dad.
So we're going to...
Well, somebody's hearing. My mama,
be
somebody.
documented.
All these people that saw you doing. Now, I mean for you to stay out that hall. Do you hear me?
Do we have any suggestions we might can give Ms. Gilkey? Her daughter, if there's a problem, do you have any problems, maybe come to the board, maybe we can help you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My daughter's gonna apologize. I want you to apologize right now.
I'm sorry.
And that you're gonna stay out these halls.
I'm gonna stay
And
out
if
the
you
hall.
all see in this hall, tell me. Let me tell you one thing. I want to make sure when you see somebody else's child in them halls, I want you to tell it, because I'm gonna tell y'all about it.
That's right. We're going to deal with all of them. And we appreciate you very much for coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My philosophy is that the only people that can turn public housing around are the people who live there. The reason why I'm so effective is not because of my charisma, but because I live there. I am a public housing tenant. I grew up in public housing. I come from a family of 15 children. I come from a history of welfare. My mother was on welfare. I chose not to be on welfare with my children, but I understand it. So that's why it's so easy for me to go down there and train my people, because I am one of them. Because I can come down here and I can give you all the skills and all the training. You got to save yourselves. There ain't gonna be no white knights, black knights, Hispanic knights coming into here save you. You got to save yourselves. First of all, you got to understand the nature of the animal that you're dealing with. The animal that you're getting ready to take on is called Public Housing Authority. They understand you. They've studied you and know exactly what you will do and what you won't do. That's why we sit in this room now. Okay? Because they know you don't have the skills to force them to be a responsible landlord. I'm going to give you the skills.
The leadership training component was really broken into 4 different parts. The first part had to do with individual skills. Second part had to do with group skills. Third part had to do with group maintenance. And finally, the 4th part dealt with group planning. In terms of individual skills, there were a couple of things that were essential. One had to do with those people involved in the program understanding the responsibilities and the role of leaders. Secondly, there was an essential part that had to do with people learning how to listen to one another, listen to themselves when they dealt with people.
My name is Dolores Wilson. I'm president of 1230 Burling Building Council in Cabrini Green. And we are proud to say that because we are interested and concerned about resident management, our attendance at our building meetings have been overwhelming.
Let's give him a hand.
I was really surprised because at the time the adults in my building weren't functioning, and I was working with the youth, and we did so many things and accomplished so much. We wanted someone to come in and help us along, do things with us and for us. Young men and women, they're supposed to have a workshop Friday in here on drug awareness for children from 15 on up to their parents who are 80, 90, or whatever the age. 15 years and up are supposed to have a workshop Friday with the beat reps. They work with the police department, and they come once a month. Our young men wanted to paint the hole from the top floor down, but at that time it was too cold, so when spring comes, we'll be able to little bit of paint job, as we have here.
And we want the doors right there closed up.
And the ones on the
And
other
the one
side.
on the back locked up. After 4:30 for the one on the back, after the John would get off.
Control the traffic.
Control the traffic, so all the traffic would come in through here.
Okay. I see you sneaking on the elevator. You're supposed to be at the meeting. We're having a meeting and we're on.
You all are ministers, right? I would like to know what could you all do to help us better our community and our building?
Well, I think it's been rich for me today. I've seen some things that I had reservations about, but I can really see that there's a lot to be done. And as I said in the meeting earlier this morning, sometimes we think we know what you want, and we give you a package, and we think that will solve the problem. But I think today has served as first-hand information in terms of what you want, where you want to go, your goals and your objectives.
We've had leadership workshops, which have really helped us. I know with myself there are words that just stand out, and every now and then when we're doing something and you kind of forget, and then things would come to your mind like documentation. You have to have things documented.
I'm a landlord, you the tenant. You move into my property and me and you cool. Why can't it just be a handshake? Why do we need a written lease between the landlord and the tenant? Somebody from Cochran.
To make it legal, just like a marriage, you have to make it legal. That way that partner would do his part and the other party would do their part. And if they try to renege, then it's something in that lease where that you can sue them or get things in order.
Okay? Go on, Peg.
In consideration of the mutual agreements.
My name is Peggy Byers. I live at 706 East 39th Street, part of IDB Wells.
This lease, management hereby leases to tenant, and tenant hereby leases from management for a private dwelling, the unit designated above. I took my master's hand, and I joined the Christian band. I am on the battlefield for my Lord.
I go to Goshen Seventh-day Adventist Church. At the moment, we don't have our own church, but we're trying to find a building or to build. So we're renting from a church on 46 in Greenwood. I have 3 children. I have a son, Michael, is 26. I have a daughter, Adrian, is 21. And I have a son, Robert, that's 11. I will be married 21 years, the 26th of this month. The media has given public housing the reputation of being a bad place to stay, which is not true. There are some I would prefer not to live in, but that does not mean that if you walk in the building, you're not walking back out. Because we have educated people in here just like they have on Prairie Shores or on the Gold Coast. It's just that they haven't had a chance to show it. And I've been here 20 years, like I said, and I've never had any problems.
It's not as hard as people say it is. We have a lot of children in the building, has a lot of talent. We have a big open field across the street over there. That's the only place that those children have to play. We need some kind of recreational facilities in the building, across the street, and that big lot across there for the children. It's not hard to raise your children in here. It doesn't take nothing but the discipline.
The Illinois Department of Public Aid stops a lot of people from really doing what they want to do. They tell you to go out and get a job. You get a job paying less than what you get.
You're cut completely off public aid. You have to think about paying babysitting costs. You have to have car fare spent, and it's really hard.
nobody comes and talk to the residents and say, what do you all want to better yourself? They'll come in and say, well, we're going to do this, which is not good for everybody. They are making your own decisions. They don't give you, as a citizen, the right to make your own decision.
We're really not getting anything that we're paying for. We're not getting any mopped hallways, swept. We have garbage pile-ups. And even residents, we have ourselves take our garbage downstairs. We try to, every way we can to help the janitor. But it doesn't do any good to clean up, and the janitors are not going to come behind us and finish the job and to keep it clean.
When you're paying the rent in a regular apartment, you're going to demand that things need to be fixed in your apartment will be fixed. Here, you can demand it, but nothing happens. I would like to see rehabilitation of the building for security reasons, for for the overall look of the building. I would like to be able for the tenants to screen to be able to say who we want in and who we don't want in. I would like to be able, if it's my family and my children do something wrong, I will be penalized for that.
My first step was to get some training for the residents that's in the building in maintenance, to be able to do the jobs themselves, because who can do more for us than we can?
You hear people say, which I hate, it bugs me when I hear a person say the projects. We do not live in projects. But you hear people, when they say that name, it's like, it's Vietnam. It's the slums, which is not. It's a lot of decent people living in public housing. And they care about where they live, and they want to be equal as everybody else.
97% of the people in public housing are good people. They are people who care. Only 3% are bad, but that 3% has been allowed to do so much. Kill, murder, rob, do everything, and nobody does anything about it, that the abnormal has become the normal. In public housing, it is normal for people to expect shooting. It's normal for people to expect to be robbed at some point. It's normal for people to expect their house to be broken into at some point. It's normal for you to expect your children to get strung out on drugs or whatever, because that's what happens in public housing. Public housing for folks who want to break in people's houses. Public housing for people who want to rob. Public housing for people who want to throw garbage out the window. Public housing for people who don't want to discipline their children, want them to write on walls, want somebody else to be responsible for what they do. Public housing is for people who want to shoot anytime they want to, sell dope, chew dope, whatever you can do with dope, they do it. That's what public housing is for. And who are you all to think or to say that you don't want these kind of people? Now, for the critics or the people on the outside who say that, and they go on to say that everybody in public housing do that. Everybody. So who you all think you are to tell somebody they can't come into your building? Then what are you gonna say? Why? What's gonna be your response?
I would say that we're tired up and we're fed up and we're not gonna take it no more.
I understand that at the last training session there was some discussion about and frustration about what was going on in terms of the things you were able to implement, and I think we need to talk about that.
We had came to an agreement that the majority of the people that's in the building are against tenant management for the most part because it's going to make them do right. And we figure if that's going to get them, that's going to let them get a chance to vote. And we know which way they're going to vote. They're going to vote against it because they're going to continue to do the same things they're doing now.
And these people don't, another thing is, we were talking about, they just don't pay us any attention because they look at us like another tenant, not as a leader or anything like that. They put no importance upon us. And we're not about to give up. But then there are others, you just got to show them something. You got to knock your bone, do something before they gonna do anything. You hear me?
But I think a lot of the people that, like some of them that came to the citywide meeting, they seem to be frustrated because they are looking for MPC to make CHA be accountable. Because one even asked, when are you all gonna make CHA give us the letter so we can tell these people what to do? They gotta realize that you all can't make CHA do anything because we as residents haven't made them do anything in 20 years.
Right. So we could leave the citations up to the manager.
But everybody in your building should know about them citations and what your building has been going through training and all that. They're supposed to know.
By that time, CHA will send
One of the most rewarding things was to see people engaged in group planning and conflict, to listen to one another, to say to one another, okay, I'm going to let you talk so I can understand what it is you're trying to say to me, and to see resolutions come out of that. And very few groups, and I don't care who they are, who are able to do that kind of thing successfully. It's a real accomplishment.
Told everybody on the floor about the citation, but once they saw it wasn't being enforced, they began to start right back up just like they was from the beginning. And it's really beginning to be rough for them.
I never told you this was going to be easy or short term. And that we've got to start addressing the problems as they occur. So I hear you. We're going to deal with a lot of these issues this morning. But I think it's important. I think it's key for you to remember where we started from 15 months ago.
And my goal is to bring together a marriage along with the team that's MPC and all the private sector and the foundations, the federal government, the housing authority, to make public housing work.
Welcome to this update session of the MPC CHA project, which we try to do periodically for those of us who have joined in supporting what we think is one of the most exciting partnerships between a civic organization and several civic organizations, as a matter of fact, and the residents of the developments of the Chicago Housing Authority.
We have come such a very long way, yes, and people want to move into our building after visiting relatives or friends in our building, and this. When you get ready for the screening, let me know. I want to move in. And when they go back to their building, they see the difference.
The problem really is with CHA. It is not something that they are embracing. They feel compelled to try it as a demonstration, but we are negotiating with them now on a day-to-day basis to try to get it implemented by February.
CHA in the past has spent over $9 million for folks to be securing the 19 development, and they sent a person around to just come and knock on one person's door and ask them how they feel, and not there on hours basis. With the residents securing themselves, they would be on duty from 24 hours per day.
Yeah, and do residents decide the screening procedures as well?
Yeah, we went on another training session. You know, sitting on the board when someone gets ready to move in, the questions that should be asked. It was fun because some of them we let in that shouldn't have been in, but that was all in the training, you know. But it was real fun.
I think what's really critical is that if we leave here understanding that we believe that the residents make the difference, then we will have achieved a lot. All of the difference at Cochran Gardens wasn't just bricks and mortar and money from HUD. And it was really the residents wanting to change their living environment.
This is a side view of the building. There are balconies that the residents designed facing towards the grounds so that they could better supervise and watch their children.
I resent when people call my home a project, because when people say project today, it's said in a negative connotation. It's not meant in a positive manner. And I resent that. Public housing is my home, it's my neighborhood. I feel as strong about public housing as any one of you feel about your neighborhood and your home. People that live in public housing live there, many of us live there by choice. It's our home, our friends are there, our families are there, our roots are there. So I do the things I do going around the country, teaching people how to be free, teaching people how to live decent, safe, and sanitary and wholesome in a holistic approach. I want you to look how we redesigned it, because you all are some of you working with your architects. This used to be the back of Cochran. How you doing? Want my tag? This is now, yes you do. This is now the front of Cochran. See where we have all the patios facing each other? Like a courtyard, like a courtyard effect. They can look at it. Right. The other thing is you see that's where the air conditioners are. See the sleeves? Everybody's air conditioners are in those sleeves. Now what we getting ready to do now, we just had a meeting Monday. We're raising money to put in central air. We're putting central air in. Each building got to raise $2,000. And then our tenant management corporation is going to finance the rest. So 2 years, 3 years from now, every one of these buildings will be total central air. Right on. Okay? All right. I grew up in public housing when it was a beautiful community. I grew up in public housing where people wanted to move into public housing, not to move out of. I represent a generation of people in public housing. I grew up in public housing when people were somebody that lived in public housing. So public housing is not a project to me.
Hey, this is very straight though.
And then she went downtown somewhere. Bill,
public house in many of our cities, they take it as the dumping ground. So the residents in public housing throughout the U.S. must come together and say, this is our home, we care, and we're going to let you know that we care. That's why we have a Bertha Gilkey. That is why she has instilled in the majority of the tenant leaders throughout the U.S. I am a tenant leader in New Jersey, one of the one. We have so many that's struggling, and tenant management is the key to turn public housing around.
All our large families live on the lower floor. No large families live on the higher floor. Okay? See the incinerator room? I was saying it don't smell. These are the large, don't this remind you of the thing? These are the condos. See up there, see those white apartments? Those are condos. They sell for $120,000 an apartment. Right across the street, see those brown red brick? Those are privately owned. 675 units on market right now, but they rent for $650. The first thing we did was just clean the buildings up. Real simple, common sense stuff. Paint the buildings. See, Catherine and them came to St. Louis. They were interested in tenant management, and we had started. I think maybe we were about a year into managing Cochran when they came, and they looked at us, and we thought, God, we was grinning because we had painted the lobbies, right? But we still had all these glasses. I mean, all these. It reminded me of 1230 Burley. I mean, we had, we still had missing windows, right? We didn't have no door, no entrance door to the building, but it was clean. And we didn't have any grass, and we was just smiling because we really thought we had achieved something. Catherine, come and look. I mean, what are y'all happy about? The wheels, I mean, what have you done?
We was afraid to go around the building.
That's how bad it was. They was afraid to go around the building. But then they don't know what it was before. I want Miss Cicely to come in case you want to ask her any questions. Okay, about her building, what Cochran used to look like. Okay. Miss Cicely, this group is from Chicago. They're from Cabrini, Washington Park, and Ivy. I've been knowing Miss Cicely all my life.
I'm a building captain here. I run the laundry room and I oversee the community room. I'm one of the screening committees. I sit in on the screening. This kitchen is very large. The kitchens used to be where you couldn't, in fact, for me to get in, I had to use a stool. The kitchen was very small. And so they enlarged everything. This is a double apartment here. Okay. These walls are dry walls. They did this. Now this is not all plaster, but the old building was all exposed.
This is a revolutionary new room freshener.
Cochran Community Center is based here in the community as a service for the residents of Cochran Gardens Tenant Management. And we feel that by having accessible health care, it promotes good health to the residents because they won't have a tendency to let an illness linger on and let it go on until it gets into a more advanced stage. Right here, they can come here to the Neighborhood Health Center and get excellent service for a very cheap cost. In the fall, in September, after the kids come out of school, we're going to have a massive tutorial program, and we're going to stress reading, writing, and arithmetic, back to the basics. Then we'll have the regular recreational programs, Little League football, Little League baseball, softball, and so forth.
We provide resident employment. That's important to us. Our residents manage our sites where we live at. We also put them in maintenance, custodians, security. Every department, every aspect of the management level, we have residents working. We then, in the daycare centers that we create and operate and own, laundromats that we open up, all either owned or operated by the residents who live in the community. Through tenant management, we create senior programs, because the other thing you get into is that you got a heavy senior population who are not being adequately taken care of. Because we live there, we have empathy for our seniors, and we care about what happens to them. So that becomes a concern of ours. So then we sit with our seniors and we find out what are their needs. And then we begin to design programs to meet those needs. And designing those programs, you got to create jobs, because you need folks to take care of the seniors. We provide the meals, somebody's got to cook the meals. Those are jobs for residents.
Well, I like it all. You like it all? Like it all. We have air conditioning, we have heat in the winter, so we have guards here to watch over us.
Unbelievable. The whole layout, the way they not only had the building and the equipment and everything together, but the tenants also had a different frame of mind as far as just keeping the place together, cleaned up, working together. It was just magnificent. I couldn't believe it.
I was totally amazed. I didn't want to believe it. I said, this is what we want for the tenants in 1230 Berlin. We want a clean atmosphere, we want a clean elevator. Even where the incinerator was, it was speak and span. It was just like it was brand new, and they had managed this building for years.
You couldn't even tell that it was low-income housing, because it looked like something like on Lakeshore Drive. It was really beautiful. It really made me want to keep doing what I'm doing until we are another St. Louis.
When we started working together 2 years ago, I told him when he was taking over after we became friends. And he didn't believe it. And his hair was all black. He's only been here 2 years. Now you see, this is what happens when you're a good executive director.
The way you measure any business, and that's what I think we're in. I don't think we're a welfare organization. I don't think we're a social service organization. We're in the real estate business. And the way you measure any business is customer satisfaction, ultimately. So for anybody that works at the St. Louis Housing Authority, they have to have a commitment to serve the residents who live in public housing. And I'm kind of hard-headed about that, and they don't have to do it out the goodness of their heart. They get paid. I get paid, they get paid. So nobody's up there volunteering any service, and so therefore nobody's doing you a favor when they fix your faucet or cut the grass. They got paid last week.
I saw my mother, saw Bertha and them begging people, would you please come to a meeting? And sometimes it wouldn't be but 10 people at a meeting. That's the honest, but they just kept on. They started telling them the reality is that if we don't do something about this development, they're going to tear it down, and where you going to live? You going to go back to them shacks that you were staying in, them cold water flats? Them folks started coming out.
You have a leader in every development. You have to find it. and that leader will pop up. You will not have to search for it because there's going to be someone who's going to be tired of the situation. We have some very, very intelligent people that live in public housing. Public housing no longer will people in public housing sit back and let the government say this is our dumping ground.
We have a responsibility to look at development in the city. We have a responsibility to house poor people, that we have to look at the crisis in housing, and that we've got to get smarter about how we plan development in the city and in all major cities, because it's not happenstance that people are homeless, doubling up, and that people are living in a country this rich in environments that are not decent and sanitary. That if we can document that the federal government has gotten out of the business of providing and subsidizing housing for low-income people, and that the private sector cannot provide that housing either because it cannot afford to or it doesn't want to, that we have to make some very serious decisions about what we're going to do to house people in this country.
If you truly care about the poor, if you really care about Chicago public housing and understanding that there is no longer any low-income housing being built for large families, and that a Cabrini Green or Robert Taylor's or Ida B. Wells or Washington Park is all that they have as it relates to housing for large families in this country. And unless we stabilize and make those housing complexes work, those people are going to join the homeless. They will be on the streets. They will be in your house. They will be at your back door. They will be waiting for you on the parking lots. If we don't do something to stabilize that housing group, there's almost 5 million people living in public housing in this country, and 96% are women and children. That's what this country is going to have to address in the next 10 years. If we don't assist the people in public housing how to take control of their destiny and how to take control of their housing.
2.5 years ago, we started this program. People said we couldn't do that. We made a lie out of a lot of people. So one thing you gotta understand, when I took on this project, I understood it very clearly because I grew up in Harrison Courts. I am a product of the housing development. And I stand proud with you tonight and every night because I know that character is in the body. It is not in a place.
Right.
And we have to prove that a lot of people are wrong about us.
Right.
And that we have a place in this society, and we're going to take that place.
All right.
So you join me when we finish this and party.
Working together, showing the concern, showing the creativity, showing a willingness to use the resources, financial and human.
I'd like to take my hat off to the Metropolitan Planning Council, Ms. Bertha Gilkey, and all of the young people who have gone through the training that is so necessary for you to do the job that we're expecting.
And we are just so appreciative. We're so pleased that I bring you our love and congratulations from LeClaire Courts.
There is no way that I can succeed with what I hope to do without you and more people like you. And when other residents see what you've done, we hope that next year we need to have this meeting in McCormick Place.
So anybody want to get along with me, don't call us project folks. We have have a name like the people live on Pill Hill, so call us our low-income condominium. So there's no turning back. With you, Vince, you gonna stand by us and we gonna stand by you.
I think what this evening's program is about work. There haven't been any shortcuts. It's been hard work, and you've achieved. You see the goal. There aren't going to be any shortcuts from here on in, but you are going to reach that goal. I know that as sure as I'm standing here.
I really couldn't believe that this was happening to us because this was like a dream come true. I just feel like we are going to make it. You know, I just know we're going to make it.
Information frees everyone, and it has freed me. I've learned a lot, I've passed on a lot, and I plan on keeping on.
I see a rebirth of public housing. I see a rebirth of a group of people that have been sleeping for a long time. I saw hope in those people's eyes, that they never really gave up. That they just said, well, maybe one day things are going to change. Things will get back to the way they used to be. Public housing will be decent, safe, and sanitary. In Chicago, you got sleeping giants. What we're doing now, as a team, we are awakening those sleeping giants.